Good morning, everyone. How's my sound, Jenny?
Yeah, it's perfect, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you. So many thanks for joining us today, especially since the sun is shining in most of Scotland. So we really appreciate you taking time to join us for this hour-long webinar. So this webinar is looking at evidencing learning using iPads. It will be delivered by myself, Susan Say, and my colleague Jenny Mackay, and we're both Digital Skills Development Officers with Education Scotland. We also have our colleague Eva Wilkinson, who's joining us in the chat area, so please use that to ask any questions and we will all get back to you. Today we are going to be looking at primarily rich media. So when we're using iPads, they're suitable for all ages and stages. They're lightweight, mobile and easy to use. With a built-in camera and microphone, then it makes learning to create rich media accessible to all learners. We were going to be creating this webinar using the live interface on an iPad. So when you're using Teams for video conferencing, you can share an iPad screen. However, due to the lag, we decided we'd actually create lots of short video clips. The benefit with having the short video clips is that they've all been included in this PowerPoint presentation. This PowerPoint presentation is saved in the Teams site that you're on just now in the file section along the top. So that means you can download this presentation and share it with colleagues who possibly didn't manage to attend today or for your own use. And that means you can just look over each of the tutorials one at a time when you want to. So what do we talk about rich media for? So when we're looking at rich media, it could be animations and videos, and that's really nice and easy to do when you're using an iPad. And we're going to be looking at some of the apps that are nice and easy for creating quick animations. But you might also want to think about podcasts, and podcasts are useful if your pupils have any permission issues that they're not allowed to be videoed, for example. We're also going to be looking at capturing all that information into a form of an ebook and how the iPads can be used with iMovie to create slideshows, etc. So when you're creating rich media, then obviously it enhances digital literacy skills, especially if they're saving the content from the apps up into the cloud, if it's Glow, for example. It also allows for creativity, allows to capture learners' voice. Again, they're talking about their learning to exemplify it, and that leads on to a deeper understanding and retention of that information. When we're creating rich media, the pupils could be creating a topic or a book report, and we'll show you some examples of that throughout this presentation. The important thing is that yes, they would create it on paper first or on a word processing app, pulling together their content, knowledge and information. They would then need to create a script or a storyboard, and that makes creating the rich media seamless. It can then be used as a reflection tool, and again we'll show you an example of that. So they could be, for example, reciting their numbers in French, and if they forget them the week after, they can go back and watch their own video again to remind themselves. Equally exciting is looking at green screen technology, which is nice and simple on an iPad. And they could actually transport themselves in front of the Eiffel Tower to be ordering their lunch in French, which allows that language learning to be really exciting and engaging for our young people. Why not create news reports and biographies so the pupils could transport themselves in front of a volcano erupting to give a live news report? Mobile devices allow for outdoor learning, and especially just now when we're all at home, the young people could be outside in their gardens, if possible, capturing data. And when we say data, it means like photographs or videos, for example. So just now we could be looking at signs of spring, taking photographs and videos and sound files, taking that information back inside and creating something with all that information, whether it's a presentation or an ebook, for example. With the iPads, there's lots of built-in accessibility features, and this is really useful to make the curriculum accessible to all learners, especially learners that are possibly dyslexic. So instead of having to type up all their information all the time, they might want to just capture their own voice or create a video or animation instead to exemplify their learning. At the end of this session, we are going to be sharing an evaluation with yourselves. I'd be very grateful if you could fill that in, especially giving us some ideas for the next webinars you'd like to see. We could deliver a session particularly looking at reaching all learners and accessibility features that are built into the iPads. So if that is something that you'll be interested in, please fill it in the evaluation, and and we'll take it into consideration for our next set of webinars.
Susan, if we just hang on there, I think some people are having issues with their sound.
Okay.
Eva's popped a comment into the conversation, but if anyone is having difficulty with sound, obviously you may not be hearing this, I recognise that, but if you are, we would suggest that you hang up and click the join button again. That might help just reset your access and kind of give the sound a little boost. Alternatively, you can refresh using the tab at the top if you're on the web browser and you've joined that way. Then click the red button. Hopefully that will help. So if we maybe just hang on there just for a second, just to give a few folk just a little bit of time, if that's okay.
No problem. Usually the log out and in again does sort of work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does help.
Yeah, that's got some comments now. That's worked for some people, so that's great. Thanks for pausing there, Susan.
Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect. So when our pupils are creating rich media, the skills are developing are reading, writing, talking and listening skills. And if we go on to the next slide, they're also developing confidence, presentation skills, creativity skills, and they could be participating in online collaboration as well. So we're going to be looking at a few apps and tools today, but we only have an hour. And there's a minefield of apps out there, and there's lots of apps that people use just now on a daily basis. But we have kind of narrowed it down to just look at a handful of apps that can allow the pupils to create their own content. So allowing people to be creators rather than consumers when they're using mobile technology. Jenny's going to look at some of the built-in apps that are already available on your iPads. I'm then going to take over and look at Apple Clips on the right-hand side, which is a free app for creating short videos. We're then going to go into iMovie at the top right, and again, it's a free app, and that can ideally be used for customizing your videos, adding titles and transitions and background music, for example. We're also going to look at it for using it with green screen technology. The next one at the top is Puppet Pals HD. Now, there are two versions of Puppet Pals in the App Store. Well, there's actually more than two. There's quite a few because there's Puppet Pals 2. But the ones that we'll be looking at is Puppet Pals and Puppet Pals HD. And we just found out last week, because Jenny told me, that Puppet Pals HD is now free. And there's lots of things you can do with it, which hopefully you'll see today. We're then going to look at Chatterpix on the left. And again, that's a free app which captures pupil voice. Jenny's going to look at the camera tool, and all the amazing features are already in that application.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. So just before we start this, because we're narrating along with our videos, we recognise that there might be a little bit of a delay between what we're saying and what you're seeing. We are watching along so that we can see, hopefully at the speed that you are, but everyone's network connection is slightly different. But as Susan has said, all of these videos are in the presentation. So as long as you've got some notes and things to go along, you'll be able to follow along and see the tools that we're using. Okay. So, as everyone's aware, your iPad and your iPhone all come with a camera, but the camera has a lot of built-in tools that are really useful. So, all that we're doing is going to take some photographs of objects that we have. So obviously if we were in school, we would have lots of resources and shape base. So for this, I'm going to use this to explain to my class about 3D objects and 2D shapes within them. So I've selected some items, and I could be the learner and I'd go around my house finding items. And all I would do is use the normal camera tool to take the photograph and record the shapes that I feel that I found. So you can see that it's just taken a photograph and popped in my roll. I then use the select button and I pick a photograph. Following that, I go up to the top right-hand corner and I select the edit button. Now, you might have used this to change filters and things like that. However, when you're in the edit button, there's a 3 dots, the ellipses appear. And what that does, if you're on an iPhone or an iPad mini, it's worth noting that sometimes that appears down the side rather than at the top. But what you'll see here is I've got this markup button appears. I've also got this sketch button, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. But at the moment, we're talking about just the built-in tools, and that's markup. So I select Markup once I've clicked those 3 dots, and I'm then given some tools at the bottom. From left to right, I have a pen, a highlighter, a coloured pencil, a rubber, and a selector, a lasso tool that allows me to copy. I also have colour wheels, so I can use my pen to highlight different shapes in different colours to clearly identify them for my teacher. I can also use the ruler. I love the ruler. It's underused as a tool in any circumstance. So as you're seeing here, I can not just use it to be a little bit more particular about the shapes that I'm doing, but I can use the ruler if I'm doing work around angles. So I could ask my pupils to go and identify some right angles, and it means that they don't have to have additional resources at hand. I can also use it to measure length and so forth. So you can see here, I'm just going through, it's measuring in millimeters because that's what I've got to set at. It's taking the line and I'm drawing along. So it doesn't matter where on the ruler I start, it will measure the length of the line that I'm drawing. And I just repeat that, going through, selecting all the different tools that I would like. I can also change the how opaque my pen is and my pencils are, and I can change colours using, if I want a colour that's not there at the moment, I can use the little colour wheel in the far corner to select one that isn't there that I would like to use. In the same way we do with our photos on our phones, I can pinch and zoom and to make a mark around an object that might be much smaller than the rest, and I can switch easily between tools. This allows me to then zoom in and zoom out if it's a particular smaller detail that I want to highlight to my learners or for my teacher. You can see here, I've also got 2 objects that are not going to be standard 2D shapes. So I can use just another colour, like I was telling you, with the colour wheel to clearly mark them off. It's a really, really valuable tool. So if you think that a learner might have taken a photograph of their work, you can import that on your school's device. You can mark off, and I can use different tools to mark my name. They can record, they can fill out a worksheet, they can fill out an activity, they can make on their photograph so that when they're submitting it, you can clearly see whose work it is. But that's a really easy way to use the camera tool. So, one of the next tools that we're going to look at is again in the camera tool. So I love it. The camera's got loads of tools that we can use for learning and teaching. But this one is the markup. So again, I've used the same photograph. I've gone up to the top corner of my screen, up in the top right hand side, and I've clicked edit. I've then clicked the 3 dots. I'm just going to pull that back. I think hopefully you're all seeing that at the same speed. So I've selected the 3 dots from the top corner, and now I've got an app called Sketch. Sketch is a free app. It doesn't cost any money, but it's not built into your iPads. The logo is a pinky red square with a little white feather arrow on top. Like I say, it doesn't cost any money, it's free, and it doesn't capture any of your data. It's simply a markup tool that you can use to work alongside your camera roll. So when I've selected it, you'll see that my photograph appears, and down the right hand side I've been given tools. Because we're all working from home, we might be having to use resources that we wouldn't normally use. So I might want to get rid of any like brand names that are on things that I'm using for a lesson. Maybe my dog is visited and I don't really want them to be in the photograph, whatever. I have this little button here that looks like a jigsaw puzzle. That means that I can draw a box over something on the image and it will pixelate it. So again, when we think about going back to school and things like that, if we're ever taking a photograph in a classroom, or maybe we don't have permission to share someone's image, or we don't want to share someone's name on a document, but we do want to highlight their terrific work, we can then use that really quickly. It also has a highlighter, which again, just like the markup tool, allows me to draw around it. And if I make a mistake, I would simply tap it and there's a delete button will appear. I can draw normal shapes using the side button. And I can also mark up things with arrows, and that's a really useful tool if you're doing things like marking up the water cycle or parts of a body, or all the plants are starting to grow now. So maybe, as Susan said, some outdoor learning where you want them to label the parts of a plant or a flower that might be in the park or the garden. So the markup tool is really, really useful. Again, you can match it up with color coding, because at the other side from the tool, at the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see that when I pick something, I can change the color. One of my favorite tools in Markup, I'm just going to pause my video, is this stamper button. So young people love a stamper, teachers love a stamper. So you can see that I'm automatically given one that is a love heart, which we may not use, but young people might like it. We have the tick, we have a question mark, an exclamation mark, and a cross stamper. So again, I've simply marked up my objects, I've color coded them, but I've still got these two items which don't tie in with any of my 2D shapes we've been talking about. So I can select a stamper, and eventually I could stamp on top of them. So again, if somebody sends me some work as a photograph and I quickly want to put it into whatever platform I'm using to share, Teams, Seesaw, Class Dojo, Google Classroom, I could take their photograph, take a screenshot, and quickly use my stamper to edit it. All of the shapes are editable by size, and it's a really quick way to give feedback and things like that. Markup and Sketch have lots of possibilities. Essentially, if you have a photograph or a screenshot, you can use these to give feedback quickly and easily, or to create posters, design things that are just really, really simple. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
No, we're fine, Jenny.
Is that okay? Perfect. Okay. You'll also see, just before we go back, if I just pop this back a little bit, there we go. You'll also see that once I mark it up, my photograph saves as it did with the marks on it. So if you've got something and you've marked it up, but then you realise that you need another copy of it, when you hit edit, you can revert all of the items, remove them all, and revert will take it back to the original photograph. So all is not lost, but you can also select a photograph as I did here, duplicate it, and then mark up one if you do want to. But that edit button, you'll see at the right hand side, the 3 dots, and the left hand side will revert it. Okay. So moving on. We are obviously sharing our videos with you, and lots of us might be familiar with screen recording on laptops and devices such as that, but an iPad and an iPhone, you can record what's going on your screen, as we've done with these videos, using the built-in tools that you may not have used yet. So the way it works is anytime you are screen recording, and again, this is good to know just in case you're concerned that you might be recording and not realising it. Whenever you screen record, a red button appears at the right-hand side where the battery and the Wi-Fi signal shows. So you're aware at any time that it's recording. So how did I do this? Essentially, all I do is go to the top corner of my screen where that button is appearing, and from the battery icon, I drag diagonally inwards to the middle of my screen. This pops up this dock area. And in here, I can control airdrop. So if I want to drop information to pupils or staff when I'm back in school, if it's a school-based device, or if I'm at home and I want to drop it to my family, etc. I can also adjust different things like the audio, but I have these 4 buttons, and these are part of a control center. So the control center is completely editable, and this icon here is my screen record button. So how did I add that onto my screen? Once I select it, you'll see it flashes, it gives me a countdown, and then it will drop. So I'm just going to let my video catch up with me. There we go. I go into settings and I select just underneath the general tab, I select control center. I always have this identified as green, so access within apps, because this allows me to access different features from that area, even if I'm on my home screen. I then go into customize control. So when I'm in customize control, what will happen is I tap it and a menu appears in a second. There we go. So I can add and select from a list of apps. So again, if we think back to just now, a young person might not have a timer, but they might have been given an iPad, or their parent might have a phone. So they can use the stopwatch. They can use all these features here. We're going to add in screen recorder. There's a magnifying tool, which is really useful, that you can add in as well. And there's lots of other different useful tools. I can change the order that they're in simply by, oops, there we go. I can change the order that they're in by selecting the 3 lines at the side as a grabbing tool and reorganize them. And at any time, if I want to remove them, I can go in here and I can just delete them. They don't disappear, they just appear at the bottom. Oops. So if I play, so I've now got my list as it is, and I've amended it to the order that I want it to be in. When I click my home button or go back to my home screen, I can then check if that's there. I simply go back up to the button up at the top corner where I got my battery, dragging diagonally to the center of my screen, and you can now see I've added in some of those additional apps. To start and stop the recording, all I would simply do is use that dotted button, tap it once, it'll change to red, count down 3, and my red dot appears. Whenever I want to stop recording, I just simply need to tap that red dot at the top, and it will automatically save to my camera roll. One thing to bear in mind is it does save with audio, but all I usually do is when I go into my video, I can remove audio, or when that initial button appears, and Susan showed me this because I don't use it very often, but if you long press that circular button there, that will give you the option to record with or without audio. So you can choose to have audio not be recorded from the get-go. I normally just concentrate on my screen, record what's happening, and then I make a copy because I usually crop out this bit of the screen, and I normally crop off the end where it's closing. And then at that point, when you're cropping it in your photographs using the edit feature, there is a bit in there that asks you, do you want to remove the audio up at the top bar? Okay, do we have any questions around that, Susan?
No, we're fine, Jenny.
We're okay? Okay, so let me just go back here. As I said, when we've recorded, you get a notification just to confirm to you that that has worked successfully. Okay, so back in. So there's another app now, depending on when you purchased your iPad or when it was issued to you, you may or may not have this automatically on your device. However, it is free to all Apple users and it is available in the App Store. So your app has a measuring tool device on it. So again, in school, we would have all of our blue measuring tapes or trundle wheels and all these amazing resources that are fabulous. But we and our young people, we can't guarantee that they have access to anything that would use this. However, the measuring tool on the iPads and the iPhones is amazing, and I can vouch for it. I was telling the last group we did this with, I used it for measuring up when I moved house. So the app itself is a black square with a yellow line through the center, because there are a lot of measuring apps in the App Store if it isn't on your device. But as I say, it's free and it's made by Apple, so just make sure that's the one you select. So when I use it, I simply tap it open, and it will ask me, as you can see here, to hover over an area that's around a flat surface. So I'm hovering over my table. And again, just building on the work that we did earlier, I'm sticking with shape, but this time I'm building in a little bit of measurement to it. So it could be looking at perimeter, length, area, and so on. So I've hovered over just to give the iPad a chance to get fixed positions. And then all I'm doing is I go to the edge of an object. I'm just going to pause here. So when it opens up, I'll go to the edge of an object, and the important thing to note is these two circular buttons at the right-hand side of your screen. The plus button basically drops your measuring tape at the edge or the corner or whatever it is that you want to measure. So I've gone to the edge of the circle, I've pushed the plus button, and I'm just moving my iPad and the camera over to the other side of the screen, the other side of this little mini speaker I had in the kitchen. So you can see instantly that's given me a measure of 13 centimetres, and it is accurate. So I did double check with a proper tape measure. But like I say, I did measure up stuff for my house. It's very accurate. When I'm using this, I can also tap it. And so my young people can then use this in an activity. So it might be measure some objects around the house, look at perimeter, for example. And if they tap that copy button, they can paste that into a note, a Word document, a team document, whatever it is, and they can build up a maths and numeracy activity. Additionally, if I go to a more traditional shaped object that's got a clearer outline, you can see, because I've got a really contrasting background, a brown table with a white card, it's clearly identifying the object on the table. So it's worked out, chances are I'm going to ask it the area, the length of all of these sides, but it's identified them, and it's also given me a crosshair. And why this is amazing is if I hover in the center, first of all, it will tell me the length of the sides. And following that, if I put my little dot in the center of the shape, it will tell me the area. Furthermore, because our young people might not understand how it came to that solution, if I hover over that or tap that central number, it will explain to me why. As you can see here, my keyboard's quite long, but it only identified the main section of my keyboard. Oh, I'm just going to let it catch up with me. Oops. There we go. Oops, there we are. So I'm going to do the same thing for my keyboard. So when I'm in my keyboard, it's measured just the middle bit. So I'm just going to adjust that, and I'm going to drop a pin using the plus button, go to the end, and now I have the length of my keyboard. I could look at the depth of it or the width of it, and I can take those measurements, and I could ask my young people to identify and take some screenshots at the same time, and so they could work out the area or the perimeter and so on using that measure tool. It's really powerful. You don't have to be constricted to small objects as I was, but for demonstration purposes that was easier. You can ask them to like measure a door frame. So if you are looking at bigger numbers, you can look at larger measurements, so floor space, etc. It's really, really useful. Any questions on measure?
No, Jenny, we're fine.
You're okay? Okay, no problem. Okay, so the next app that we're going to look at is Notes. So you may have used Notes on your phone for your shopping list and so on, but Notes has an absolute ton of stuff, and I use it all the time. So hopefully, even if you are familiar, these will be some new things that you might not be as familiar with. So again, Notes is on everybody's device. It's this yellow and white tile at the bottom if you're not familiar. So when I open up my Notes, all that happens is I'm going to have a list down here that would basically be shortcuts you'll see in a second, and this big space over here is my notepad. So anything that I type to start with becomes the new title. So I went up to the top corner, I clicked the square with the pencil icon, and that generated a note. As I was saying, as soon as I type, it'll go into bold, and that will become the title of my note. I can edit this at any time, and I'll show you in just a second how to do that. So as you can see here, as we might do, our young people might not have access to paper and pens and things like that, but they might have a phone or a device that they can use. And so I'm going to type in kind of like a little news report to send into my teacher. So you can see here, I'm just really straightforward typing along. So I'm just going to really quickly fast forward that because you can all see that I'm typing away. Okay. So I've got to the end of my sentence, but I want to highlight some words and I want to make them bold and I want to edit it a little bit. So there's two things I can do. I can double tap over a word as I'm about to. So I've gone back to the word love to emphasize that I really love robots. And that gives me a shortcut to editing menu. So I can copy, paste, replace it, look it up, check the meaning of it. But also at the side of my screen, I've got this double A icon, which gives me a text editing button. So again, I can use this top bar here to identify different types of font and styles of font. I can also make things bold, italic, scored through, and you can see I've got some other options that we're going to come to in a minute. So I'm going to make this bold. I don't want the whole thing to be bold though. I just want that word. I've tapped it and now it is bold for me. I'm also going to make a list of things that I saw when I was out on my walk. So I'm going to go back to that double A button, the text editing button, and this time I'm going to do a bullet list. So again, I can make just a really quick list of the things that I saw in the park. So that's really straightforward. And anytime I hit return, a new item will appear. I also love it. So at the other side of your screen, just before it comes onto it, you'll see this circular button with a tick at the right-hand side. This in a second is going to allow me to create a to-do list or a sorting list. And this is really useful. So I've obviously used some bullet points, so I'm going to share this. But I might share with my teacher things that I'm going to do today, and then I might want to go back to it, or even just for my own professional development, I might just make a little, if you're like me, you might love a to-do list. So I'm going to put a to-do list in, and I might just keep it for myself or share it. So I select the tick, the circular button with the tick, I press return, and now I can type. You can see that because I touched on that button there, there's the round one with the tick, I'm getting these dots at the side of it rather than the bullet points. What I love about this is the minute I have completed my object on my list, if I tap the circle to say complete, it will auto sort for me. So what that means is anything that's complete goes to the bottom of the list. So if you're like me and when you have an uneven list, this is a really useful tool, but it also lets you clearly see what for learning and teaching they still have left to do. And that's up at the top. I'm also going to just add in to evidence my learning some photographs. So I might have gone on a trip and I might want to take a photograph. So again, you can see there, I've selected the photograph, the camera icon, and I'm given a few options. It will let me scan a learning document in, it will let me take a photograph, or it will let me use an existing one. So for this, we're going to use an existing photograph. So I tap that, and now I'm getting my camera roll. And I've taken this picture of the robots, I tap it and hit select, and that will paste it in. I can then put some text on, and all of this is, I'm just giving some mixed media back to my teacher about my experience. So if I've gone on a walk, I can take a photograph of what I've done and then they can see that. I can also use it to exemplify understanding. So if I'm saying I've learned how to do X, Y, and Z, I might have taken a photograph of my progress and my process of doing that. And they are not my robots. They are worth a lot of money. They're from the V&A in Dundee, so just full honesty. So that's how to create lots and lots of resources from one single note. And you can see at the side of my screen, my notes are here. I can also put them into categories and folders. So again, if I wanted to put them by curricular area, I'm able to create folders and I can then sort them. I can also sort them by name and date and so on using the icon at the side. So notes doesn't just stop there at being fabulous though. So I'm just going back here. So if I have, in terms of clarity, if I have an Apple Pencil, so everyone is able to do text and photograph mixing. If your young people have an Apple Pencil, or if you have an Apple Pencil, you're also able to add images and drawings into the mix. So again, they might not to take a photograph, but they might want to, again, design a logo, label something, whatever it is. So if you have an Apple Pencil, you can mix drawing and text and photographs on one page. If you don't, you can still draw, but it has to have its own note. So you would do all your writing on one note, use that square button with the pencil at the very top right-hand corner, and then you would draw on the second note, for example. So to go along with this, I'm going to use my markup tool that I showed you earlier. So I'm just going to go back to show you where I got that. So I'm basically tapping on the screen if I'm on the Word document, but down here, oops, see here, I've got a little pencil has appeared at the side, so I can tap that, it's above my keyboard, and I get my markup tools. What I love about this in Notes is I obviously don't want all of my notepad covered over by my pencil case. That's not how we would work if we were in our classroom. So I'm going to show you how to auto minimize it to get it out of the way. So I tap the 3 dots, tag the toggle, and it pops it to the side. So now I just tap the button at the side anytime I want my pencil case to open up, my markup tools to appear, and I can go through all of the tools that are there that we looked at before. And now I can use a blended approach to share my understanding or my learning with my teacher or my pupils. So I'm not going to bore you all with showing you how I'm drawing this, but I'm using different tools, different media, and I'm going to draw this. Also, fair play, I cannot draw. So I have other skills, but drawing is clearly not one of them. So you can see for our younger learners where they might still be learning to mark make, this is a really powerful tool for them to be able to capture their learning and understanding. It's very, very simple. At the top of the keyboard, tap the pencil icon that appears here, or it'll appear down at the bottom. If I don't have a mixed, like I say, if I don't have an Apple Pencil, it would have to be a separate note. The other thing is, if I do have a pencil, I can then just change back and forward to typing. You'll also see at the side of my screen, at the left side, I've got this box button. This allows me to incorporate tables into my notes. So again, I could make a list of words and ask my pupils to populate their answers into it, or I can make a timetable of things that might be happening that week in a format that's really easy for me to create and for them to read. So I'm going to simply select a table by selecting that box. I've popped in here. You can see I'm going to want another column. So here I'm going to select the 3 dots again, and that will give me an option to add in another item. At any time, you can see I tap that and it gives me add column, delete column, all the things that you might be familiar with if you use tables in Texies, Word, PowerPoint, etc. So I'm going to basically say things that I saw, and then I'm going to use my 1+2 skills and I'm going to transfer them into French. So on Monday, I saw an apple, and then I'm going to get them to put it into French for me. So lots and lots of potential for that and how you would use it with your learners. Lots of ways you can use it for your own learning and teaching, but also for your own sort of development, things like that. It's a really, really powerful tool. I'm also going to show you how you might share these with your young people. So up in the top corner, there we go. Up in the top corner where I started my note from, you'll see there's this square share button. I'm going to highlight this person plus button, which if you use Glow, you might be familiar with the share icons. The reason that I'm not going to go over the person share button here is this will automatically give whoever you're sharing it with your iCloud address. Now, if you're using a school or local authority owned device, that's probably not so much of an issue, but many of us don't have access to that. So I would say steer clear of that and stick to this share button, which is the square up arrow. Now, by using that, oops, what should happen is I can then tap that button. Oops, it's just going to decide to catch up with me. And you can see now I am being given an option to share it in a range of different ways. I can pin the note to the top if it's something I'm going to put in daily. So it could be like which pupils have engaged with me. I might want to just keep a wee note. I've got Teams. If I have OneDrive there, Susan's going to talk about Book Creator, but I can push my note to all of these other tools really, really quickly and really easily. It's a fast way to share what I've been doing. There is a share copy button in there that will only take text. So if you have written loads of writing and you want to then paste it into a formal Word document, but you might have been working quickly on your iPad, maybe it's today and it's a nice day, you're out in the garden, so you take your iPad out, but you then need to transfer it into a formal document, you can use that copy, paste, and paste it into an email to yourself or paste it into Teams when you go back inside and so on. Okay, Susan, any questions on notes?
No questions, Jenny.
Okay, so at that point, I am going to hand you over to Susan, and she is going to take control of the screen and talk to you about clips.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Can you see my screen okay, Jenny?
I can, thank you.
Perfect. So I'm going to be looking at Apple Clips, which is a free app in the App Store. And like Jenny, I've created a short video tutorial that I'm going to talk over to explain how you can create your short videos. So when you open up the app, you click Create New at the top left-hand side. You can then choose Camera, Posters or Library, so live pictures or posters. The posters is a nice title screen. When you click on the title, you simply overtype to name your movie. Once you're happy with that, you can then click on the star icon and you can add some GIFs and emojis and some extra text if you so wish. There's some really nice ones. There's Disney and Star Wars, all built in, and they're free to use, copyright-free stickers. So I've went with a Star Wars theme for this example, and you can click and drag and resize them. You can then add some subtitles. So again, when your young people are talking over their slides, it will capture their voice and add the subtitles along. Again, this is making it accessible to all learners. On the globe on the left-hand side, you can actually use it with modern languages, so you can choose any language to narrate over your slides. Then you click the big red button and hold it for as long as you want to talk. So you can see my words were coming up on the screen, how to be a cyber expert. I then go in and select my first picture from my library that's already in my camera roll. Once I've selected my picture, I hold the red button and you can see my words are coming on the screen. Always use a strong password, and you simply unclick the red button when you're finished. I'm now going to add another picture from my picture library. Hold the red button and you can see never share your password appeared on the screen. I'm now going in to add a finishing slide. I usually put something like the end. And that's just a short example of adding some pictures from your picture library, adding some text, adding subtitles and capturing voice all at the same time. However, when you select one of the slides along your timeline at the bottom, you can still customize it. So I might decide I want to jazz it up and add some more stickers from that sticker library. And you know it's always accessible from that star icon. You can also delete any slides if you decide later on that you don't want them, just by simply selecting them and this menu appears. Once I'm happy with my images and my text and my stickers, I would then want to add some background music. So once that sticker is downloaded, if you want to delete a sticker, you select it and the word delete will appear. And when I say select, you just click on it. And the audio is at the top right. All the soundtracks are copyright free, so you can use any one from the pre-installed library. These do not stay on your device all the time. You may need to click on the cloud to pull them down, because there's quite a lot. Unfortunately, you won't hear it at your side, but you can see that the audio has now went on to my entire video. If I click at the start and click play, you can now see that I have my dynamic graphics, I have my title, and I have my subtitles. I'm pulling together information all into the one video. This could be pictures of my work, for example. Or again, I always go back to signs of spring. They could be outside taking pictures. It's a nice, easy way to pull together a short video. Bottom right is your export icon because you need to save it into your camera roll by clicking Save Video. And that's the same with any application we look at. The pupils always need to know to click the export and save it to their camera roll. Once it's in a camera roll, they can then save it into Glow or share it using any of your sharing apps that you already use in school. And you can see how that video now has saved into my camera roll. Okay. Any questions about clips before I move on?
Yeah, we have one. How do people edit the text? Can you just talk through
Edit
that?
the text? So
Yeah.
I'll just go back to the start. So the very first one, I added a title, a poster it's called. So I'll just click play again. So I've clicked on posters at the bottom right, well middle right. Posters appear, there's lots to choose from, and all you do is click on the text that's already there and then start typing. You just over type. So it happens automatically as soon as you select the title that's there by default.
I think also how you can edit the text when you've done some audio input. So I think it might also be that as well.
For the subtitles, Jenny?
Yes. Yeah.
So subtitles, all you would do is just delete it by selecting on the icon. So let me just go over here. So on the timeline at the bottom, that's all my information. So if I wanted to delete one or re-record it, I would just select it. So let me just go forward, and this menu appears here. So I would just do my live titles and I would do it again. Alternatively, I could trim it and record it again from scratch. And along the timeline at the bottom, you can click and drag to reorder them. So if your new one that you've done goes in at the end, you can simply pull it back and put it where you want it in the timeline.
Thanks, Susan. That was the only question that had come in.
Perfect. And this is an example.
French colours. Rouge.
This young person just took pictures of colours around her house, added the French text, French narration, and background music.
Gris. Jaune. Bleu. Marron.
There's lots of other ways you can use clips. For example, you might want to create a little tutorial for your young people. They might want to create it themselves, exemplify learning, or you might have digital leaders that want to create some tutorials. The next one we're looking at is Chatterpix, and again it's free to download from the App Store. There's Chatterpix Kids and there's Chatterpix. Jenny and I always recommend the Chatterpix Kids for primary schools. And this is a little demonstration of how you can create a Chatterpix. You can save a picture from a browser and into your camera roll, or you can take a live picture straight into the application. So I'm just going to click play now in the video. So you open it up and you select Take Photo. This is your live photos where you can hit the big yellow button or you select the camera roll bottom left. And I have a picture of some artwork that I want to bring to life. I can reposition that artwork on my page and click Next at the top right once I'm happy. I then need to draw a mouth on my picture. You can only draw a straight line, and then you hit the record button. You can record up to 30 seconds. So once the pupil has the recording, they would then click stop using the big orange button at the bottom. And then they can play it back if they so wish. There's Next at the top right, where you can customize your video by adding filters and frames and text. However, the exciting part is the stickers, where you can really bring your pictures to life and customize them. And young people love this feature. So I've given my artwork some glasses. You position, click Next at the top right, and you can listen to it back. But remember, we have to save it to camera roll, bottom right, and it will save that video straight into your camera roll again, where you can save it into Glow, pull it into an ebook, or save it or share it using any of the applications you already use in school. So this could bring anything to life. A piece of artwork, it could be a tree outside or buds on a tree, or it could be a lovely piece of handwriting, or it could be the reading book that the young people are reading just now. It's a very short book report. Any questions about Chatterpix?
No, none. We're all up to date.
So the next one we're going to look at is Puppet Pals HD. And there's lots of ways that this can be used. But remember, primarily the pupils need to pull together a script or a storyboard before they open up the app. So they know they can use background graphics and characters that are copyright free if they're using their own ones. And again, this is a very short video that I'm going to click play in a second to demonstrate how it can be used. So I clicked more characters because I wanted to add some more characters to my bank of characters in my app. You click the category on the left hand side and install on the right. And you can see that characters are installing within a couple of seconds. So that happens fairly quickly. And when you're happy, you just click back and then press to start at the bottom right. And this is where you can scroll through all the characters that you've just added and all been categorized. Community is really good if you're doing internet safety or people who help us in the community. Then you scroll down, there's fairy tale for early years, for example, and farm characters. However, the most exciting thing about this app is that you can be in your own animation and your young people can be in the animation. So if your topic was Egypt, for example, the young people might want to save some pictures of pharaohs into their camera roll and use them in their animation. So I'm just going to pause it just now for a second. So when I click Add Actor at the very top right hand side, I've got two options. I could take a live picture, which I'll demonstrate in a second, or choose existing. And when I select choose existing, this is where I could browse my camera roll to pull in the pictures of the pharaohs I want in my Egyptian animation that I'm my way to create. So again, it can link into anything that's happening in your classroom or any lesson you are delivering. So this is a live photo. You can flip your camera at the right and then just click the big white button on the right and click Use Photo at the bottom right. You then need to use your finger to draw an outline of the character, being very careful. And then Accept. You then need to click on that character and that means that they will be in the animation. So we're looking for characters with a big green tick beside them. And you can have any amount of characters in your animation. And then we click Next at the right hand side. And this is where you can select some backgrounds. So again, if your topic was Egypt, the pupils might want to save some pictures of the pyramids and then import their pharaohs in front of them, and keeping it in theme to what you're teaching at that time. So for example, I had a young person using my iPad that were doing the Scottish Parliament, and she decided she'd save a background picture, and she saved some pictures of Nicola Sturgeon, and she brought her to life in her animation, linking into her topic. And again, you can select more than one background. So for this example, I'm uploading a background that I've already got in my camera roll. And I wanted to create a French talking postcard. So I had a copyright-free graphic that I wanted to use in my animation. I also wanted to demonstrate how I could create an animation linking into my topic that was Titanic. And I've accepted that. And then I would make sure that the green tick, and I'm sure I've selected the moon as well, just to be random. And then we select Next at the bottom right hand side once I have all my backgrounds. Inside the white rectangular area is the area that will be recorded, so you can pull your characters out and just take them into the recordable area when you're ready. Nice simple interface. There's only one button at the top to click record, but you can see the tassels allow you to swap seamlessly between the backgrounds, which again makes it really important that young people have got a storyboard so they can keep on task. It's always better creating short bite-sized videos and then joining them together in iMovie than creating one big long video where it has a mistake at the end and causes a bit of bother to edit it again. Once you're happy, you click Stop, because remember, after that, we need to make sure that this video is saved to our camera roll. So we click the Save icon at the top, which is a floppy disk. I'm going to watch it first a bit. So I'll just move it forward a bit. And you can see how that's saved. I then need to go to the export section and make sure that it is in my camera roll. So export, it compresses the video, and then it goes into my camera roll automatically. I've just clicked off the app into camera roll, and you can see the last video is the one that I have just captured. And that is Puppet Pals. Any questions about Puppet Pals, Jenny?
Oh, sorry, I realised it was you. We're all up to speed. Oh, is there any sound feature?
Absolutely, and I'm just going to show you an example just now. Was that to add sounds, add music, Jenny, or just the narration?
It doesn't say, so maybe both.
So narration, the pupils would just talk over the animation once you click record, and it automatically picks up the voice. There's no built-in free copyright music or sound files, so if you did want to add that on, you need another device or possibly another app to add the music. So the example I'm going to show you next, a young person saved their animation and then took it into iMovie. Once it was in iMovie, they added on some background music, for example. So let me just go on to the next one.
Just before you move on to that, another way is, we're not covering it in this call, but all iPads either have or can install voice recorder, so the young people can create their own music, use it and record that, and you can upload that as well, with them taking like ownership of that side of things too.
Brilliant, thank you, Jenny.
No worries.
So this one here, they created the animation in Puppet Pals and then edited it in iMovie. And this was secondary pupils looking at the cell membrane in their biology class.
Let's find out about the cell membrane.
All the cells are enclosed by the cell membrane. The structure has two layers and is represented in the diagram behind this.
Can you see the extracellular environment?
Yes, this area outside the cell. Each layer has two components, lipids and proteins.
Did you know lipids have two layers?
So you can see how important it is that the young people had their script and their storyboard, they researched their background graphics and they changed as they were going through that information, and now they then took it into iMovie and they added the background music, which ended up at a really nice end product to exemplify that learning. So for editing, which leads us on nicely to iMovie. So iMovie is a free application, and I'm just going to go over it very quickly because I know we're conscious of time. If you do want to look at iMovie in greater detail, please put it back in the evaluation, because we could spend a whole webinar looking at just iMovie itself. So once you open up iMovie, just click the plus at the top left-hand side and you get two options, and we're going to go with Create a Movie. You then select the photographs or videos that you want included and click Create Movie at the bottom of your screen. You can see how my movie is about shapes, and I've been using the Markup tool that Jenny demonstrated this morning to look for shapes around my house. Now when you automatically add that pictures in, you can then click on the settings at the top right and choose a nice theme. And they're really nice news report themes that include background music if you so wish. So I've selected the playful theme and I'm including the background music, and you can see it's popped into the bottom of my timeline. Each photo by default has a Ken Burns effect enabled. We can also add some titles, and I'll explain about Ken Burns in a second. So titles appears at the bottom, it's just a T where you can add titles and overtype again like clips. You can see how my pictures are scrolling, but for this video I didn't want them scrolling because I wanted my teacher to see the pictures clearly in the middle of my screen. So Ken Burns is enabled by clicking on the picture, and the yellow line appears round that picture. So you can see that there, it's highlighted yellow. I'm just going to pause it here. So once you select your picture by clicking on it, Ken Burns appears over here. And Ken Burns just means it scrolls from one side of the picture to the other to give you a nice dynamic video. However, I didn't want that. So what I did was I dragged my picture, so my word rectangle was in the middle, and then I clicked here to disable the Ken Burns effect. So it was just a static picture that I wanted in my movie. And that's it disabled. And I did it for each picture individually to disable the scrolling. However, I did leave it on the first picture because I thought it was nice to scroll just for the opening slide. So now I have my opening slide with my title and then my static pictures that have been edited using Markup, looking at shapes around my house. I then wanted to add a green screen effect at the end just to demonstrate how that can be used, and I realised this is really quick. So I'm just adding the background picture for my green screen footage. I then need to take my timeline, this is my timeline here, back to the start of that video. Once I'm happy, or picture, once I'm happy it's at the start, I then need to select my green screen footage that I've pre-recorded. Now this could be the people standing in front of a green cloth, it could be a green wall, a green shower curtain, for example. If it's a small animation, it could be a green pizza box painted. It could be anything that they find about the house, or even just a big green scarf. But I have one already created, so I'm just going to click play on my video again. So I find my green screen footage. I select it by clicking on it, and then I click the three dots here, and it opens up a menu where I select green screen. It then puts the video on top of that picture. And when I scroll, you can then see that the background picture is now added onto my green screen footage. And that was a very quick demo of green screen. So I have my title with Ken Burns effect. Then I have my static pictures that have been edited in Markup, my background music, and my green screen footage at the end. Again, that was a very quick demo. Make sure it's saved into your camera roll by clicking export, and then you choose what size you want your video to be. And it exports it into your camera roll again, where you can do something else with it. But there's lots of things you can do with iMovie, so again, feedback if it's something you want to look at in greater detail. And this is an example. So the young person has pulled together our content knowledge of our topic that was India. She's got her script, her storyboard, researched our background pictures. I'm going to scroll forward because she's got static pictures just now, but I want to show you some video footage that was copyright free. So you can see how that's really exciting and engaging for that young person. They've been transported into India to talk about what they've learned about that topic. So they could be transported anywhere in the world, but actually any time. So they could go back in time, or they could create a video into the future if they so wish. There's lots of exciting things that they could do. So you get the idea. Quick example here, World War II project, created with a green screen effect, but then she's added some text on top of it. So it's a bit like the Harry Potter newspapers that come to life. You can watch these in greater detail after this webinar because I am conscious of time and it's all been saved into the files section. Book creator, very quickly, pulling together content knowledge into one place so you have one end product to exemplify your learning. With Book Creator, you can add all kinds of rich media. You might just choose, if it's younger learners, just to use a narration so you're capturing voice. And this is a very, very quick overview of how you create a book. So you've got 6 to choose from, templates. So we just went for a landscape, a blank one, simple interface. If you click the eye icon at the very top, then you can choose the background theme, which gives you a very professional look and feel to your ebook. There's lots of schools using Book Creator across Scotland. You can see how there's musical notes as well, but I've stuck with a pencil theme because this is going to be my art book. To add content, you click on the plus, and you can add photos from your camera roll. So here's one I'd saved earlier. You can reposition it and resize it by grabbing the blue object handle in the corner. I now want to add some text by clicking on the plus and select Add Text. And this is going to be the title for my book. And click Done at the top right. Again, you can reposition that on your page. If you click the I button, this is your edit. So you can choose how large you want the font to be, the colour, etc. You can also choose to click on the blue object handle to drag and make the text go on one line if you so wish. The arrow on the right hand side allows you to jump to the next page. If you click on the eye, you can then keep the same theme throughout your book. Click on the plus, and this time we're going to demonstrate using the pen tool. Pen tool is really useful for younger learners, and it's also very useful if you're using this as a maths book, especially for writing equations. So this is a competition for best artist between me and Jenny with our fire engine.
You win.
And you can also add emojis as well. I'm just going to skip it on a little bit. You can see how that can be repositioned on the page. New page, this time I'm going to import a picture from my camera roll. And this is my artwork again. And you can see how I can add some text onto this page to talk about my artwork, and click Done. Again, I can reposition it. I can click on the I and edit my text and edit my background colour as well. I can also use the shape tool to give my picture a nice border. So plus and the ellipses, and you can access shapes. In the shapes, there's also really nice thought bubbles and speech bubbles. You can then edit that shape, give it a border, and make the colour in the centre transparent. It's just nice little features to give yourself a really professional looking book. But all importantly, I can now click the plus and add some narration to capture my voice so my teacher can hear me talking about my learning. Then click Stop, accept the recording and reposition it on your page. I can then click Pages and I can reorder them, just like PowerPoint. I can also go back to the start and click play at the top right hand side and scroll through my book like it's a real book. I can also hover my mouse over the top and click on the read to me, and it'll read the book back to me, which is really useful. There's lots of things you can do with Book Creator, and again it could be a whole webinar just devoted to how you can use Book Creator for learning and teaching. When you click Done at the top left and back to My Books at the top left, the export buttons at the bottom, there's various ways you can share your book. You can compress it as a video or you can share it as an EPUB. You can also publish them online if your authority allow that. And that's Book Creator. So I'm just going to skip on because I have a very quick example here. So I'm just going to click play. This was a French language book. Pupil has used a dictate tool to say all about me in the first page, and it's captured her voice and put it into text. She's now got an embedded sound on each colour, so she can use that as a reflection tool, and she's used a couple of animations so the teacher can hear her having a conversation in French. And this is Puppet Pals that we looked at today. She's also taken a picture of our worksheet, and our teacher has given her some feedback in the form of a video. But again, that's lots more detail that we can include in a later webinar. Okay, over to Jenny.
Thank you. So just before we go on, it's worth pointing out Book Creator. There's a full version that allows you to create multiple books. That does cost money. I think it's about $4.99. However, what we're showing you is Book Creator 1, which is completely free. You can only create one book, but it does have all of the features Susan has shown you. And like I say, there's no cost attached to that one at all. So all of the stuff we're showing you is free. Okay, so things that we've covered today: rich media, the importance of it and how it can be used to benefit learning and teaching, built-in tools, and the tools on the iPad that we've covered. If Susan, can you just click next and it should pop up for us. Thanks. Camera, Markup, Sketch, screen recorder, Measure, Notes, Clips, Chatterpix, Puppet Pals HD, iMovie with green screen, and Book Creator. We've also talked about how you can capture pupils' voice in a wide range of ways using all of these tools. So lots and lots of flexibility depending on age, stage and learner ability. Okay, we're also going to cover help. So where can you go for next steps? So obviously there's the community that you're in where our team is sitting. Please ask in there. We're all happy to help. There's also Everyone Creates. So Apple have a series of books. You can look at them on your iPad. It's from the bookstore. They are all free and they all come with great guides, inspirational ideas of how you can use things, and really practical resources for learning and teaching that are creative based. Also, there's the Apple Teacher Program. So many of you may already be familiar with either the Google Educator Community or the Microsoft Educator Center. Apple have their own teacher program that you can become accredited with, a series of 12, 14 courses. You go through, it teaches you about some of the features at your own speed. You can complete the activity, and if you complete all of the activities, you can become an accredited Apple Teacher Program. That also comes with its own online community that has lots of edu chats and things if you do use social media. There's a link there to iMovie, again, because this presentation is shared in our file space. Please feel free to click these and it'll take you straight to there. But the iMovie guide has lots of inspiration, and there's a link to Book Creator's site, which again has 50 free ways to use Book Creator for early years, 50 free ways to use it for literacy, and so on. So there's lots of online support that's available to you. Lastly, we have our Twitter feed. So Did You Learn Scott? Please tag us in, either using the @ or the hashtag, as you can see there, and follow along on that on our Twitter feed, or the Education Scotland Twitter feed, Education Scott, for any updates on things that we're offering out, webinars and such like. Lastly, we'd like to thank you all for taking part. We know we've run over. We had to pause a little bit just because some people were having sound issues and technical things, and we're all moving online, and that comes with its own challenges. But we really appreciate you joining us on such a sunny day. Thank you to those of you who popped questions in. We'll be around for the next little while. And lastly, we have a little evaluation that Eva has popped into the chat. You've also all been emailed a link to it too. It takes less than 2 minutes. But if you would like us to do a longer, in-depth input on any of the apps we've shown you, anything at all really, we really are keen to get your feedback and to find out what you need from us, and we'll see if we can offer that for you. Like I say, if you have any questions, please pop them in, and thank you all so much. Thanks to Eva for manning the chat, and to Susan as well. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.